Okay, this is session 77, I think. I guess I can give the recap because it was 4 weeks ago was the last time we met. You had sailed past Pax Gloranthus and were traveling upriver towards the city of Lucianum. On the way, as you were getting into the headwaters of the river, an illusion formed on the deck of the ship that was of T-Hole's ex-wife and the former Empress Turbo. She then gave you an opportunity to return to Pax Gloranthus and join up with the Imperial forces, which are looking for the Wand of Eternity's doorstep. But that was essentially rejected. So you continued to sail upriver. You found out the illusion was being maintained by the wizard Bucknerd, who you'd previously met and was at the time looking for the wand himself. So the thinking is that he probably has enlisted with the Imperials. The Imperials also suggested that their portents of the future suggest that you guys are going to somehow majorly screw up, and your getting the wand would be a terrible, terrible thing. And that they had some plan to neutralize the wand, but they weren't willing to tell you because their portents are that you guys are going to screw up. So they would really just like you to stand down and not go after the wand, according to them, and let them handle it. But their offer to meet and discuss this further was rejected. As you traveled upriver further, you were assaulted by a force that was led by Turbo, but you managed to stun her, and she got dropped into a river, after which she disappeared, and defeated those forces. As you were leaving, an invisible Axius revealed that he is in fact not the happy-go-lucky drug-using human Axius, but is in fact a shape-shifting changeling Axius. I don't know which name you're going to go by, Claved or Axius going forward, but you discovered that he was in fact just disguising himself with an illusion.
Believe me, there's many names that I will be going forward with.
And you also overheard from some of the guards who didn't get killed that there are at least 2 legions stationed between you and Lucianum. And so the expectation is that those 2 legions will probably be, at least in part, mobilized to try to stop you from reaching Lucianum. Tony wants to get back in, I suppose.
Do you wish to be recorded now?
Yeah, I guess. Only I went to press the button. My mouse went a little bit too far. Click. Oh, God.
So I just gave the recap about Turbo and traveling up the river, and the fact that there may be 10,000 soldiers between you and Lucianum.
Maybe. We sailed past some, right?
Right. You were assaulted by Turbo and a group that she had, but you overheard from some of the remaining soldiers that there were potentially 2 legions up ahead.
These motherfuckers really want us.
The ship is not going to withstand the assault of 10,000, especially on the river with nowhere to go. As much as I dislike the idea, I think we should abandon the ship and continue on foot. At least then we can have more of a chance of hiding, passing unseen. If only we had some sort of teleportation, or we just... But alas, we could try to go...
What we were trying to move towards.
Right. it seems it would seem folly to go to Pax Coranthus to seek out some sort of faster means of travel, but
Oh, wait, I thought we were going to Lucianum, not Pax Glaranthes.
we are. Is I'm saying Teal's saying it would be folly to like go to Pax Coranthus, but it's also folly to go into knowingly into 2 legions without a game plan.
I'm not exactly fond of the idea of casting off of this ship, but I also recognize that it is a rather large target. Also, so Clay, the person that you know as Axius looks quite different now. He's about a similar height and build, but rather than wearing the more colorful clothes that he had before, he's now wearing dark robes, which cover half of his face. And there's this, so it's difficult to see what his face looks like, but his voice is also different, and it's not as like California surfer dude esque.
He's gone goth.
Just imagine the guy in the server room at an IT crowd.
Richmond.
Richmond.
Yes. Skull face and all.
Why don't you see any Cockney goths? They're too happy, aren't they?
Axius, you are. What made you cast off your disguise? Did Zarius make you feel comfortable? Oh, did he die?
Yeah, he was knocked out.
Ah,
Yeah, but also just as a reminder, in the battle, my character used an ability that made it clear that he was a shapeshifter, which was in plain view of everybody.
gotcha.
Yes, well, the battle that we just had unfortunately gave away my true nature, so I figured why fight against it. What is that?
This is an Etnol with a broken
Nice.
weapon. Fucking brutal weapon. Spiked
Nice.
flail. Yeah. Two-headed enormous knoll.
Well, I harbor no ill will towards changelings, though others might not be. Others may not say the same. Not within within the empire, they tend to be intolerable.
Are you trying to educate me on how others view my kind? I'm well
No, of course
aware
not.
of the prejudices that lie with those who would kill me on sight. This is why I have to hide my form, but because I was truthful about my readings of the
Okay.
books of your exploits. I was hopeful that you would be a little bit more understanding my true nature.
Your trust would be well placed.
Well, we'll see.
Look,
And Captain Pamilio chimes in. So are you getting off the boat? Because I have to stay with the boat.
Then be safe.
Captain Pamilio, it may be dangerous for you to continue in these waters as well. If they are expecting this ship, then you will be beset by all of that, all of the army that lies in wait for us.
this place is a
Fly a white flag and you should be fine.
In
Let
best
them
case,
search
you will
your
be-
ship.
In best case, you will be seized. Worst case, no questions will be asked, and it will be sunk.
You all have a relatively flippant attitude about how the Empire might take to those who have aided us.
Say he would just say that you were coerced.
It's not wrong.
He doesn't know that. He's still charmed.
I mean, I've already died once. I'm not looking forward to dying again. And I imagine if they're looking for you and they don't care about me, they're not going to give me the option of a quick death. They're going to torture me to figure out where you are.
Yeah, so that raises the question. I mean, it is certainly not very helpful to continue on in this vessel, as it is now well known to their forces. But at the same time, we're talking about thousands of men searching for us. Even if we are on foot, it shouldn't take them very long to find us.
And is there no way you could like make the ship invisible? Something?
My powers over the magic of illusion are formidable, but I can't make an entire vessel disappear.
You would have to
Not yet,
disguise
anyways.
that's. You would have to disguise the ship's wake.
No way to make the ship fly?
So,
I mean, you made an
The-
entire glass island.
my character begins pondering at that, thinking about the magic that he has at his disposal.
Can the ship not just stealth its way down the river?
Roll stealth.
I know it's big and all, but disadvantage only can be applied once.
So I guess that's a good question. Would my character know of any magic or any method, ritual, or whatever that could potentially make an entire vessel vanish from sight?
Uh,
Fly.
I mean, there definitely used to be magic that would allow ships to fly in a sense. Although it was more complicated in that you couldn't just like turn in midair. You really had to know where you were going, set a course, and once you were in the air, that was it. As for turning a ship invisible, there certainly are supposed to be spells from the ancient days that were powerful enough to cloak entire cities. And so presumably a vessel's possible. But there's no, there would be something that would be sort of legendary more than anything else. Now, that said, I view you guys in the tier of you're pretty close to legendary. So it might be possible for you to turn a ship invisible with action points and enough spell slots.
So then, if I were to potentially rest to get back some spell slots, and have attempt some kind of transmogrification on the fly of Mirage Arcane to affect just the ship, what might that entail, and how might we be able to try?
So I would say if you cast Mirage Arcane and spend an action point, and because like as Tony suggested, the ship is creating a dip in the water, so it's not only turning the ship invisible, it's sort of creating an illusion that the water's still level and flat. I would say if you cast Mirage Arcane and kept concentration on it to keep that illusion up, constantly changing of a flat surface of the water, you could do that.
So then I imagine that I mean, the action point and the spell slot are the price of admission, but then the ongoing cost, I imagine that there's got to be a toll for concentrating on a spell for that long.
I mean, so at some point you are going to have to rest again and sleep. But I don't necessarily assume that you can't keep concentration on a spell for long periods of time. So I wouldn't on the fly not invent a mechanic for that. You know, it's obviously you might break concentration in a lot of different ways, but it's really just the upcoming, you know, the next day's rest that would be an issue.
Yeah. Okay. And then, you know, we'll see. Maybe Clave will just try to not sleep, and we'll get to explore those exhaustion rules.
How fast moving is the river?
Well, so it's a pretty big river. So in part, it depends on just how wide and deep it is at any given point. At the moment, it's not super fast. It is, the current does move against you. It flows down into the Athmere. But
Yeah.
the ship itself has a magical drive that allows it to go upriver without relying too much on its sails. Although to the extent the captain has been able, he prefers to use the sails because it makes the ship go faster.
If we could secure an alternative is if we could secure some way to have the ability to breathe underwater and enough momentum to walk or swim upstream, we may be able to just hoof it unseen.
You want to dive beneath the river and swim for how many hundreds of miles?
Beats getting caught.
That sounds like I mean, I know that I am still new to your group, but that sounds like something within the realm of achievability.
For real.
It's only about 1,000 miles of swimming.
We only need to do this when it is necessary.
I need you to understand, Axios, the lengths I'm willing to go to not see my ex-wife again.
So that gets a rare chuckle out of my character right there. A good hearty laugh.
We don't have
there
to
may
make that
be
decision
some
now.
These weird
But
monkey
if-
folk and their marriages.
There
Just
may be
lay your
some-
eggs and spray your sperm all over it like a normal person.
So Clave tries his best to get that image out of his head. And says there, to Captain Pamilio's point, there may be some options that my magic might be able to offer, but before I even consider them, I will need rest. I am pretty gravely injured from that fight.
Okay, that's a whole lot of fight.
Of course, I also wish to get Zarius's night escapades out of my head as well. I only suggest these options as a last resort. I would much prefer to go unseen with your magic if it's able to accommodate.
We could get the ability to breathe underwater. I could potentially bring us below water. I can control the water, as I have done before.
Well, it is good to know that we have options worth exploring then, should my magic be unable to accomplish what I'm hoping that it can.
We seen other ships on the river.
You have occasionally the other ships would come, mostly sailing down the river. You haven't seen any that went up the river, but your ship is considerably faster going up river than a normal ship. So it would be unlikely that anyone would overtake you. But you've also seen like little fishing vessels here and there, small, like 2-3 man boats with people on them here and there. I mean, you've passed by a number of small towns on occasion that have docks that reach out into the river.
Why don't we just find another boat? They're looking for this one. Then when they stop this one, we should be able to pass them. And then if we have to, we can just turn it in.
What did you just do?
We can use our new goth friend, and he can make it invisible.
Lord Balin is coming. Did you break something?
I think that's a great idea.
If this ship moves ahead, it will be found first and searched.
Yes,
Then-
they're likely to search any other vessel that would be heading in the same direction.
The
if
moment
we
this one is found lacking us, they will begin to search every vessel.
Good job.
Right.
Well, maybe it's better just to go on land.
In which case, perhaps the invisibility magic might be a better use at that point. Perhaps we can go unseen on one of these vessels
That's certainly a
instead of the
possibility.
entire vessel.
Yes, it's certainly a possibility, but I am uncertain what countermeasures the Empire may
The thing
have.
that Clave is like stepping in buckets and banging into things.
Pamilio!
Wait,
Just because he's gone goth, he's still high as fuck and stumbling.
Right. Steps on a rake and it comes up. Who put a rake here in the middle of a boat?
Falls backward onto another rake.
What is this, a rake farm?
God damn all these hoes. We could dock the boat, take a smaller vessel upstream, dock at a town, go on land to a different town, and then hop on the river again. to throw
Yeah,
off our
I
scent.
just think if we stay on this boat, and we're just they know what they're looking for. They're just gonna wait for us.
Well, they may not have. They may, if I can make it work, if I can successfully hide the boat from visibility. I don't think they would necessarily expect that. Whereas I do think they might expect us to try to get aboard some other ship or try to hide ourselves from view or disguise ourselves, whether it's upon this ship or another vessel.
I don't think they're gonna. True, we could make the boat invisible, but I think they're gonna wonder what happened to a big ship and why it just vanished.
What if we destroyed it?
Captain Leo immediately looks a little shocked hearing that.
As does Clave. I think that is premature jumping to conclusions. I think that there are very few, if any, capable of, and I don't even know myself if I'm capable of creating a cloak of invisibility over the entire ship. But if that is successful, they certainly would not expect it. Now, there may be some physical barriers that we might have to navigate when the time comes, but I don't think that it will.
They're probably stopping boats sailing upstream anyway, if they're really looking for you, if it's important to them. They stop ships all the time just to do assessments for taxes on the cargo, things like that. I don't know why they wouldn't expect you to jump ship.
That's true. So we could, I mean, I believe that I have faith that that Axios, because he doesn't know that you're being called by this other name.
Yeah, that's right.
I have faith that Axios is able to work his magic just like he was able to make his magic bouncy castle in the middle of the Athmere. But if we need to destroy the ship,
Zarius instinctually rubs his knee.
we need to destroy the ship in order to cover our trail. You know, and that might be what we have to do.
I do think it would be important to have additional plans, contingencies in place should my magic not work as anticipated.
If we can get enough ingredients to breathe underwater for 1,000+ miles, then we can go down with the ship and then just swim the rest of the way.
As I said, we only need to be underwater for the duration that we see them. Or to be
That too.
unseen for that amount of time.
Kurt, are there any relatively commonly known underwater countermeasures? Like, for example, do they have a fantasy version of underwater mines or submarines, or does the Empire employ Sahagwin or anything like that?
It's not entirely unheard of. It is highly unlikely you are going to meet any underwater opposition along this river. In the Athmere, the Navy, the 5th Legion does have some underwater options, but not the regular. In fact, the regular legions, the legions that you might meet along the way, it is unlikely that they even have significant ships, because the Navy just isn't the biggest focus of the military in the Empire. They might, they'll have small 2-man, 3-man crafts, things like that, but they're not likely to have anything bigger. they'll commandeer a ship if they need it.
And what about shoot, I forgot what I was gonna say. Never mind. I'll think of it in a minute, I'm sure. Oh,
Right.
how deep is the waterway that we're actually using right now, to our
Right.
best
So
guess?
it is a major river, but it varies. It can be anything from, at least at the center of the river, anything from about 20 feet if the river is especially wide at that point, to sometimes as deep as 40 or 50 feet.
Okay, so realistically, like, we wouldn't be all that deep if they had any ability to search underwater as well as above water.
Right. At the
What,
shallower.
well, what
at
is
the
the visibility too? Because I mean, is it pretty turbid water? Is it fairly clear?
It's not very clear. You know, if you put your hand in, you can see it down to about 2 feet, 3 feet. You know, it's a relatively muddy river. But it is certainly true that at its deepest point, you could completely submerge the ship. At its shallowest point, the mast would be poking out above the water. This ship, at least, because it's a sailing ship.
Aren't there like thousands of people in these legions?
5,000 per legion, yes.
I mean, if we have any kind of disguise magic or invisibility, we could just blend in if they showed up and then slip away.
That is true, and it's certainly an option. I certainly have that capacity. But once again, I mean, Lady Turbo seemed to be pretty well armed and prepared for us. So they, and especially after the displays that I utilized in battle against them, they may be prepared for such trickery, or at least trying. It's certainly a good option to consider.
What a woman.
Do we know, is it common knowledge, or would any of us know the Empire's ability to utilize like areas of anti-magic or any kind of divination magic that would reveal disguises? I think that would be something that Clave would especially be aware of.
So it is, you yourselves are not Clave, I guess, but most of the party experienced. The Silver Throne is an artifact, and it has the ability to do several things, including creating vast bubbles of anti-magic zones if it needs to. So you were traveled for many days through a period where magic was just dead for all intents and purposes. And that was an effect of the Empire joining the war. You're not as sure. It is clear the Empire has enough in the way of magic on its side to scry, and probably has things like crystal balls that they can use to scry. But you're not really aware if, you know, to what extent they could just nullify illusion magic within an area. That you've not heard of. But Daggerface chimes in to say, well, if you guys are going to get off the boat, then I suppose we could always turn the boat around and sail back for the Athmere. Then at least if they're looking for the boat, they'll get reports of it, but sailing in the opposite direction from their legions, which makes sense in its own way.
That actually gives me an idea. Perhaps a combination of plans. Rather than turning the boat invisible, perhaps with the magic that I use to alter the terrain, I could create a bubble that encapsulates us and allows us to travel beneath the waves. It's something that they definitely wouldn't see coming. And if they're looking for the boat, if it's going in the opposite direction, then, well, they won't be looking for us so hard.
That's an excellent idea.
The
I
one
wish my
issue.
ability.
Sorry, go ahead.
I wish my ability to disguise myself was as good as yours, Axios. I don't. As much as I'd like to think that I could fit into a Roman legion, or not an Empire legion, unnoticed, I just don't think that's going to happen.
I will say that the one flaw in the plan is, should my concentration break, or should I be unable to maintain the magic for whatever reason. For example, well, does Clave know about the area of dead magic? I know the others were, but does Clave?
I guess still really a skill for this. So roll me a wisdom check. Because I don't know that this would have actually made it back into the Empire. So DC is well 15. So you made it. So yes, you've heard some rumors you've definitely, everybody knows that occasionally there will be just storms of anti-magic that will sweep through. Usually they pass in a couple hours or a day. But you've heard that the Empire has begun to weaponize this effect. You know, like the US does with weather control machines.
China.
Yes.
The weather war.
So my character would say, you know, or if there were one of these theoretical instances of the Empire just creating areas of dead magic, it would leave us very vulnerable, since we would be underwater, immediately pressed by the sudden rushing of water. And for one like Xarius, who is wearing full armor, make it very difficult to swim.
Mike's always trying to get my armor off.
I'm not suggesting that you take off your armor, but it is something that we need to be prepared for. Obviously, I do not intend to let the magic slip, but that may not necessarily be fully in my control.
I have a spell prepared. It will help in case of such things.
Do you wish to share with the class what magic you might offer? It's a little mysterious for you to just keep that in your pocket.
The gods move in
Xarius
mysterious ways.
Xarius
This is a
full
spell
of mystery.
that keeps one's movements free.
And you could cast this upon all of us?
Not at once. But I, being the most heavily armored, would have a strong need for it. You all at least can swim.
We don't know what the current will be like in the water, especially that deep, depending on where. I mean, all of this is theoretical. I don't even know if my magic will allow for this. It will take intense effort and thought as I rest to determine the theoretical calculations to shape the magic in this way, and then also to find the energies within myself to produce it. I do
Well-
think that we should consider other options in case I should fail. I do not want to be what we rely upon.
Well,
Well,
it sounds as though.
I agree.
Go ahead.
While you are concentrating, I can offer my services in giving daily affirmations. And of course, reading the portents to see what dangers may beset us. Pomilio, I apologize. You were about to have a stroke of genius.
Familiar just says, if the Imperial legions are looking for you, I don't know how far upriver they are, but if you need to disembark and rest, then I agree with Daggerface, and we should just turn the ship around and sail now. I don't know what ship you're planning on taking under the water, but most ships don't work well once you swamp the deck with water. So most ships at the shallower parts of this river would still be sticking up above water, at least in part. So I'm not really sure what your plan is. I wasn't really following that, but if you want to get off, we can, you can hop in a dinghy and go for shore now. We'll turn this thing around. And I promise we'll do our best to give a good chase before they realize that you're not aboard. I mean, at the very least, we didn't see any real legionary activity behind us. So, and we'll move faster going downriver to the Athmere than we were going upriver. So I think we'll be a good distance away before they realize you're not here.
Thank you, Captain Pomilio, for your willingness to support us in this plan.
Well, apparently the alternative is he's going to destroy the ship. I guarantee you I'm not going to receive any treasure when I get back to Lucianum if I've lost the entire ship.
Only out of necessity. If should that, in grave necessity, should that come to pass. But I like this plan much better.
So now the question is, if we disembark on the ship, from the ship, and we take a rest, and we attempt this plan sometime the next day, how do we carry all of Xerius's treasure?
On bodies. He's got
Yes, and the bodies.
Dead dragonborn with him.
How he's got one dead dragonborn, right?
Yes.
Or does
Yeah.
he have two?
No, just the one.
So it's not that bad. Like, is it a little lighter now? Has it been like decomposing for a bit?
It has not. It has not been decomposing at all. I've been keeping it preserved.
Oh, I suppose.
Every 10
It just-
days, I recast the spell.
But he
We
could
have
fit-
several hundred pounds of coins and gems, don't we? Or Xerius, at least.
No. No way.
could leave the dragonborn on the ship.
From the
and-
Bahir.
Several
I thought you-
100 pounds.
Yeah.
You got a bunch of treasure from the Bahir. Like a whole giant, cart full.
I don't care about coins. I only take gems.
I don't know where I got the idea, but I thought it was like whole cart full.
We do have to. That being said, we do have 22 giant platinum pieces and 170 giant gold pieces.
When
Yeah.
you say giant, like I'm thinking, like, are they like dinner plate sized?
Yes.
No, they came from a giant.
Right.
But
But they
yeah.
are like dinner plates.
Yeah, I guess that would be. So we are incredibly rich.
Yes, but now can we carry it with us? And if so, how? Does anybody have Tensor's floating disc?
That would be you.
One time this would have been useful in a campaign. I literally never seen a use for this spell until now.
Because most campaigning parties have a fucking bag of holding. We've never found one.
Actually, there was one in the party, but it's with Nimrod.
Oh yeah. Well, he wasn't part of the party, so it doesn't matter. As far as party is concerned, Nimrod wasn't a member of this party. All of Lucerosi's prophecies that he's banking on are false. but that's Lucerosi's mistake to make. So
Right. But technically that bag of holding wasn't actually Nimrod's either. It was the hobgoblin giant that you defeated. And
Right.
it just had him stored inside, trapped inside the giant's bag of holding. Tamaki Taranti.
Good old Tommy. Didn't Lucerosy climb up his dick at one point?
There were actually a couple giants.
Climbed.
right, there was the hobgoblin giant, and then there was like the giant.
Right. There was the hobgoblin giant was really just a hobgoblin who grew to giant size. You climbed up the dick of an actual giant.
Yeah.
I feel like that's an achievement, like an Xbox achievement.
Yeah, there was definitely a chime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The achievement we call giant dick.
So Daggerface inquires now once again, what is your plan? And like, where should you disembark? Do you need to be near a town where you'll find a boat?
I don't know. What I'm thinking is perhaps with one of my spells with some modifications, it could provide us a semblance of a vessel that we could use underwater. Perhaps Zarius, with your control of the water, in working in coordination, I could maintain the spell effect that contains us and supports us beneath the waves while you act as the engine that propels us forward.
Along with my daily affirmations, don't you forget. When the hour grows dark, as in nighttime, and you'll need a pick-me-up, I will have just the words you will need to lift your spirits.
Aurelia, I've seen you have some proficiency with magical arts. Might you have any suggestions or anything that you might be able to offer either this or
I think we're fucked.
an apt assessment? I've spent my entire life trying to stay under the radar of the Empire. It does not bring me any pleasure to know that now I am one of them wanted.
I mean, how many miles is it to our destination? Like a lot?
About 1,000.
That's my understanding.
How far do we think we can travel underwater? It's like a floating bubble or something.
That
Well,
seems to be
it's-
it.
Experimentally, once again, I've never used this magic in this way, and I'm not even 100% sure it will work.
Just
Presumably we-
remember, Aurelia, your ability to conquer challenges is limitless, and your potential to succeed is infinite.
He's becoming a bard.
I miss Lucia Rossi more and more.
Presumably, we should be able to see this legion before we get to them.
Now, an interesting idea. Now, I as a player know this, but I'm not sure that Clave knows this, or Axios, because he hasn't clarified what his name is, and he doesn't really have a name. He goes by somebody. But Aurelia, you have some control over time magic, don't you?
A little bit, but it's
I
not
mean, you
perfect.
probably saw it whenever she closed the fucking black hole thing.
Yeah, I'm not sure that my character would have understood the nature of what she was doing, but I mean, that could be another component. You know, if Aurelia does have some ability to manipulate time to speed up our travel, and then that way, you know, Aurelia's like an accelerator, Sirius is the engine, Clave is creating the vehicle, and T-Hole is the motivator.
Well, we haven't been to
He's
Luciana.
that guy. He's that guy in the rowing competitions that's just going row, row.
Well, we haven't been to Lucianum, so we can't use like Fallout Fast Trip.
Right. We got to make it there first to unlock it.
Yep.
That waypoint.
What's the ship's condition? Is it did it take any damage in that fight? I can't remember. I think it did.
I mean, it didn't take substantial damage. Was a bit of cosmetic damage. It looks a little more beaten up. There were a lot of like arrows that thudded into the planks, but it's not exactly structural damage that it took. It took more structural damage in the Athmir when it was fighting the Sahuagin, and the one started just trying to rip it apart from underwater. So it is not in its pristine shape, but it's doing okay. It's no worse than it was when you started on the river, really.
Well, we might be able to get into one of these small little coast towns and maybe get transport from one of them, at least over land. I'm sure with some of our coin, we could probably negotiate something. Then if we have to get in the water, we can go get in the water.
The downside, I think, is then we'd be seen if we just avoided, assuming we have enough supplies.
Well, I think like we were saying,
Well-
we should probably see this Legion. You know, we would probably at least run into their advanced scouts. And then we could just change our course of action. Use our disguise or invisibility.
That's fair. I might need some assistance. I'm not that invisible or that easily disguised. But
Like you have partial invisibility. People ignore you. You think you're invisible, or
He has the luxury of being human.
I have the capacity to disguise all of us, including our racial composition and our clothing. It's not a problem if that's the route we choose to go.
The ability to disguise the ship and us might be all we need. Maybe.
Well, we need supplies. 1,000 miles is a long way, and I'm willing to walk every single mile on the bottom of at the bottom of this river so I can avoid my ex-wife. But we might need to surface for supplies at some point. I'm not sure how much we could take from the stores of this ship. Oh,
Food and drink are not a problem unless magic is removed from us.
Which is entirely possible, and we should consider that as a potential hazard.
Right, but T-Hole is addicted to weed. So
oh yeah, we should stop at a town. I thought I saw a town. I thought I saw an alley in that town. It looked like a good alley.
You will survive.
My obstacles are moving out of my way. My path is carved towards greatness. I just need to continue walking that path. And that path is leading me to the bottom of this river. So shall we disembark in a short while and continue, and so that Captain Pomilio can try his chances upriver or downriver, I suppose.
Whichever way is going to bring me closer to rest. I'm in a great deal of pain right now.
That outfit's not helping.
Should
Right,
rest.
so. But do we rest on the boat or on land?
I think we should rest on land. I think we're sitting ducks on this boat.
I agree. Aurelia has had a stroke of wisdom, which she always has. We should get off this boat sooner than later.
Captain Pomilio has been preparing one of the dinghies ever since it was suggested that you get off the boat. So he is ready to lower you into the water.
I am capable of creating a shelter for us that should suffice once we get upon land, if that is our choice.
Is it day or, I mean, what's the time of day?
It's like late afternoon now.
How long till sunset?
Probably about 3 hours.
Perhaps we should wait to disembark until the dusk.
Well, which way do you want me to sail the ship then? Upriver or downriver?
Can you sail upriver for a couple more hours, and then we shall disembark?
Okay, although we run the risk of meeting
Running.
more troops upriver.
We'll just disembark. Let's just disembark now. We really,
Okay.
I'm just gonna look around and see if is anybody around. I mean,
You don't see anybody in the immediate vicinity. You're not too far past the bridge, though, where you had this whole fight.
right.
So there were soldiers probably, a mile behind you.
Okay. So
I can
maybe we'll wait.
use Capri to scout.
Yeah.
So you're disembarking then?
Yep.
Okay, so you're lowered into the water in the dinghy. Which side of the bank do you want to get off on? Not that it's super momentous, but there's, the traditional imperial side, and then the side that the empire conquered in recent days.
Well, if the map's any indication, on the right-hand side are all the legions, and on the left, it's fine. So we should go to the left-hand side.
Yeah. I want to go to the side where there is no text.
Correct. The no-tech side looks good.
So you sail into both sides were imperial land, but you sail towards the side where the church lands begin.
We're gonna sail to the safe side.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know why, but my mind just was like, if whatever direction we're going to the left side. That's the side. So I'm glad that my intuition lined up with what the map said.
Well, yeah, you were moving south, so technically you're going to your right side.
Right.
Yeah.
Right in character,
Right.
but left on this map here. That was from what we see.
Right.
No, left.
Yes. So, it is a bit of this portion of the river has fairly rocky terrain on either side. It's not exactly beaches, but you're able to scramble up out of the river basin and up onto flat, dry land again. It's pretty heavily forested at this particular point. But from what you've seen so far, as you go upriver, periodically you'll meet this forest is probably pretty small and probably then opens up on additional farmland. But at the moment, you're pretty secluded. Even from the river, if you back up a bit, you probably couldn't be easily seen.
Okay.
Let's have a look around and set up camp. If we can rest early, maybe we can start early.
Pull the
While it's
boat in
still
and
dark.
hide it.
Yes. I assume the boat is small enough that we could even bring it out of the water if we needed to and hoist it up.
Right. It is still a fairly substantial. It's 10 feet long. So, this thing still weighs a couple 100 pounds to carry everyone. What are you doing with the Dragonborn body? That's it. And like all of the heavy stuff.
Gotta bring it with us.
Clave's not carrying shit. He's hurt. He's bleeding.
Gotta bring it. I gotta bring the body. I have to. My gems I can carry. I'm good there.
I hope you carry your friend. But when are we gonna dump his body?
We are bringing him home, so he will be with us for the entire trip.
The captain offers to keep the body, and they can just weekend at Bernie's in the rigging or something to make it look like an extra sailor.
Do you believe you can sail past?
Sail past what?
Any checkpoints?
We didn't see any checkpoints on the way here. Assuming we can make it past that bridge in one piece, I don't imagine it'll be that hard to make it back to the Athmere. Then the hope is I have some contacts, or rather the Duke has some contacts in towns around there. I'm hoping we can find a place to lay low.
How long do you believe it will take you to return?
To the Athmere? We're only it took us 3 days to get here. It'll take me 2 to get back there.
Where do you plan to go afterwards?
Probably the town of Ferratin would be the first place I would go, because I know the Duke has relatives there and they may be willing to provide safe harbor for the ship.
It's going to be a while before he see this body. That's what he's saying.
Then
If
the body
ever.
must come with us.
Yeah, I have no idea if you're suggesting how long before I can return the body to you. I don't know if we will ever see each other again after you get off this boat, because I have no idea how long it's going to take me to get back to Luciano, or if I'll even be allowed to come back without bringing the boat with me. And that probably is going to take, how long before the Empire gives up looking for you on the river? A month at least before I would even try again.
Body comes with us.
Darius, your mind is full of brilliant ideas that you can use to benefit yourself and others. So I trust you.
There's like a weird head cock.
I'm practicing.
For what?
How am I gonna for keeping Axius motivated? Is it working?
Hand on shoulder.
Yeah,
I
Axios
don't
is not.
And then just
understand.
walk past.
So
I
clambering
have
up
to
the
try
side
harder.
of the clambering over the rocks and up the side of the river into the forest is a bit more tricky once you're taking the body with you, but because he's not a tiny dragonborn. He is he's a little smaller, I guess, than Zarius himself, and doesn't have all his equipment, but he's still a good hefty 200 pounds.
You plan on raising him along the ways areas so we don't have to carry him?
At least he can carry his own weight.
We could try reincarnation, maybe something smaller like a gnome.
No. 2 each.
His gnome.
Why are we carrying this body?
He deserves to be returned to his home. He was sent after us under false ideas. I intend to bring him back to his home and have him properly buried.
He can be buried here. What is different? Other
His
than the
family deserves
location?
to see it one more time.
I can remember his exact details, and I can recreate his image, and they would be able to see him through me.
That would require me to unwrap him.
Then why don't we do so?
No.
I don't understand. He is creating an undue. It is a body. It is creating an undue burden on us to carry it. I do not understand you, Zarius. There are people that you refuse to resurrect, then people that you resurrect because it suits you, and then people you don't resurrect, but you drag them along with you for no absurdable reason. Am I the only one, Aurelia, T-Hole? Does this make sense to either of you?
None of this has made any sense since I've been here.
Though these times are difficult, they're only a short phase of life. Everything that's happening now is for my ultimate good.
Are you just reading aspirations or whatever? Do you have like a list of them?
Hell yeah, I am. There is basically a affirmation for any situation you can think of. And that's the beauty. They're like horoscopes.
Yep. This video is educational now, bitch.
We can do whatever the fuck we can now apply nudity to the show because it's educational.
Fair use, baby.
I like to think T-Hole has a book that he's actually just reading these from. So, except for when
I
you
found
look,
this down the hold.
right when you look, you discover the book is centuries old and it was written by T-Hole.
It's aptly named the Book of T-Hole. It only garnered a few followers.
He's trying to bring it back.
So, but you make it onto the shore. Daggerface and the two remaining crewmen and the captain all remain on the boat. And you see it is apparently, you can see them from the riverbank, that it is a complicated procedure to just turn the ship around with only three, with the captain really ordering around only 3 people. But they do manage to slowly steer it around in a circle and not, inadvertently beach it. And it begins to be carried off by the current back to the Athmere. You are all now up high over the river again in this forested area. Kepri does a circle around and Zarius can see through its eyes. There does appear to be a village or a small town that's approximately half a mile away. There's a series of farms. The copse of trees that you're in the forest is only a couple acres in size. But you don't see anyone in the forest itself at this point. There's a road to your west that does pass through the forest, paralleling the river. Several farms are in the area, and the village itself doesn't look especially bustling. It probably has 100 people, maybe total, who live in it. It does have a small dock, but it seems to be a dock for fishing vessels.
Well,
We can make it there
Clave.
like by nighttime, I guess. Or
why
do we
would
have to rest first?
Why would we need to go to the village? We can make camp here.
Sure.
Yes, I'd rather not. I'd rather avoid any interaction as long as we're able to.
We can start. And I'll have Kepri like go invisible and go fly. Well, sorry, how far out did you say the village was?
About half a mile.
So Kepri can like make it there in a little bit.
Yep.
Scout it around and come back.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll have Kepri do that. Go invisible and go do that, and then just report back what she finds. And it'll probably take a little bit. I understand. So.
So she comes back. She says the town is apparently called Arastia. It appears to be sort of a small farming community with a couple fishermen who live in it. There's an inn there, although if you're camping here, you probably don't need that. It doesn't appear as though there's much going on there, except that there is a road coming in. The most bustling industry they seem to have is a bit of a slave market, because slaves are brought in from the west and then travel north or south from there. So it's a bit of a hub for that.
Good thing we don't have Hellweir here. He'd want to collect all their ears.
Right. Oh, Nala is technically with you, but
Hopefully she doesn't have her father's charms, or need for charms, rather.
She's pretty close.
So,
how are you setting up this?
Oh yes.
well, Clave is going to take out a bit of sage and start burning it and marking out a perimeter, and begin ritually casting Liamon's tiny hut.
Okay.
see if I have any spells that might be able to help us here. I don't think so.
So are you setting a watch for the night, or are you keeping Kepri out to keep guard? What are you doing?
We should set watches. Kepper needs to sleep too.
I can take first watch. You guys should get some rest. I will try to come up with more inspirational pieces for the journey ahead.
So what does the hut look like? You're trying to make it blend in, or not?
Yeah, am I able to make it look like just a mound of like grass?
I mean, you can make it grass colored. It doesn't automatically just let you set like a texture kind of thing.
Okay. What if I used a 3rd level version or a 4th level version of major image? So would I be able, would that last for the 8 hours?
I mean, normally I think no, but you know, if you want to spend an action point, you can certainly change the appearance. Even without spending major image, if you spend an action point, I would let you make it look like a grassy mound.
I think I'll save that for now because I don't know if I'm going to need it for tomorrow. So then I'll make it look grass colored or as close as I can.
So you are all, I assume, inside this so that you can come and go as you please, other than Clave himself. Around dusk, Kepri does come back with some degree of worry, say that it looks as if some of the farmers are hunting, and they're hunting in this copse of woods as twilight comes. But as it turns out, none of them get close enough to where you are to notice this hut in the middle of the thing. So the night basically goes with you being undisturbed. So you get your long rest in.
Excellent. See if I'm changing any of my spells.
Nice. I guess I had 1 level of exhaustion, which is gone now.
So we don't plan to go onto the river, right? Back down to the river. We gonna walk the rest of the way?
I think Clave's idea is to use the river and try to use his magic to create some kind of underwater vessel that we can use.
Then I will
with Mirage Arcane.
I will keep control water then. Oh yeah. I guess the only other big item that we have to carry with us is that mirror.
I forgot about the mirror. So yeah, there's a very delicate operation getting the mirror up over the rocks.
Well, we can keep it on the boat. Right? If we're going back down on the boat, we just keep it on the boat. Right? Boat on the shore. Whoever's keeping watch, just make sure the boat's still there.
Are we getting in the river, or are we going to try to get a cart and make our way down on land?
If we can get in, if we could stay in the river, then that would be best.
Yeah, the DM was also unclear. It sounded as if some people were like, we'll travel upriver, and some people were like, no, we'll walk on land. And I never really heard that the two sides met on that point. So
I think it's still up for debate, maybe.
Teal he doesn't really have faith in many disguises, so would feel the safest underwater.
Right under a tarp.
So
Yeah. Do we have a method for traveling across the water then? Because
Well,
this
once again, it's an experimental use of the spell, but I'm sure that it is at least possible.
it would be some effort as well to control the water for so long. It normally only lasts 10 minutes. So that's
well, we could take a cart, I suppose.
We'd have to get a cart.
What would the cart? What purpose would the cart serve?
Carry all this shit, the mirror,
Yeah.
the body.
Exactly.
I have a bum knee. I'd rather not walk.
Well, I guess so. Are we deciding to go over land then?
Either way, it's fine for me. I'll try the other way. I don't care.
I personally think that it would be better to travel in the river if possible. And if my magic works in the theoretical ways that it could, I don't know that a cart would necessarily be needed to carry all of our goods.
We could just blend in with the slave traders.
Who here wants to be disguised as one of the slaves?
Yes, but where are the slave traders going? Are they going to Lucianum?
Sure, if they're traveling on a major road, they're going north and south.
I mean, it is more likely that the ones going north and south are headed towards a larger port town where they will take a ship to some final destination. But it's entirely possible that they would also be going to Lucianum. I mean, that is a major city in the world.
Theoretically, my magic, there's no reason that it wouldn't work over land as well. I do think that it would be quicker, especially if we could synergize with Xerius's magic to control the water. But
Well, we just have a lot of stuff, but you know, if that's what you guys want to do.
Right. Here's what I would say. It's because this is like a new use of your spell. Creating this underwater vessel is going to require a caster check. But you've never done this before, so the DC's a little high. The DC will be 17.
okay.
Yeah, as if you do it successfully once, though, the DC will come down a bit because you figured it out.
So I'm glad that I saved that action point.
So, there is
I can help with that as well.
Non-zero chance of failure.
I think we should at least try it. And then we can, if it doesn't work out and Axius leads us all to Watery Grave, we can get back up on land and try again. Or try it.
Well, hopefully not the Watery Grave.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
We'll be all 3d6 down the line. And
This is yours is the probably most vital portion of this experiment. Let us assist.
Just remember, Axius, You are creatively inspired by the world around you, and you can use that inspiration to achieve amazing things in your life.
I like to think that happened after Axios has already cast a spell.
It's almost as good as inspiration for Aurelia. Almost.
Almost.
Aurelia could in fact inspire Axios, but it's like, nah, he'll be fine. T-Hole's got
It's
it.
important that he gets this on his own.
Zarius is not going to take that chance, and he channels some spells, and an eagle flies overhead, and you have now gotten Eagle's Splendor.
What is the Eagle Splendor?
Advantage on charisma checks. I assume charisma for you, right?
No.
No.
What are you? Hold on, which one are you? I'll do the right one. I thought you were a sorcerer.
No.
What the fuck?
Try again.
I don't
He's
know
an
if you are that.
illusionist.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Illusionist wizard.
Oh, that's right. Fucking wizard. All right. Yeah. Hold on. So instead, a fucking
Yeah,
fox.
that is official. You cast that first. And then Glaive is like,
Cool. Now when I smile, it goes ding. Doesn't really help, but it's nice.
now
I
you
don't know
can
why I
very
thought you
nicely
were a
try to
fucking
convince
sorcerer.
Aurelia to give you inspiration.
I feel like I would actually know that you're a wizard, despite me having a shit fucking memory, thinking you're a fucking sorcerer.
I'm kind of thinking it's one of those things that would it's probably not something that gets discussed in that way.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, does he have a fucking spell book? Like, how does he prepare spells? We've never seen him prepare a spell in the
Oh,
morning.
so that's a good question. I do think I have like a special way that I have it.
Keeps it in this pocket dimension. Has all this room.
I don't have a spell book in the traditional sense that you would know it. So there's that. So
You've never seen him reading from a book.
yeah.
So,
What? How have I seen you prepare spells? Have I seen you prepare spells?
Okay, now I remember. You have seen him read a book, but whenever you've looked at the book, it's blank.
Mm-hmm. Wizard shenanigans.
Because of your with your observant feat series, you probably would have noticed that he's not reading from the book, but rather from his shadow.
Okay.
Which is odd.
right. Like, if you had been traveling with this character for like months on end, then I would say you definitely have worked all this out. But for now, we'll just say you cast the spell, and then
I don't know shit. Yeah. Fucking sorcerer. They need charisma, obviously.
Aurelia looks at the artist formerly known as Axios and his outfit, and it's like, what a poser. And then I inspire you.
Such an inspiring diss.
I'm no poser. I'll show you.
Okay.
I'm more goth than you are.
So in my head, so we have the dinghy, right? The boat
Right.
still. So in my head, Clave is going to use that as a kind of focus. And so he's going to take out a piece of pitch and he's going to melt it slightly. And after completing that, he's going to use that to mark out runes on each major side of the vessel. So the right side, left side, front and back. And then using that as a focus, he's going to attempt to channel the magic of his Mirage Arcane spell in a way that allows it to create a vessel that is simultaneously submersible and shimmered. I don't know if I can get it invisible, but as close to as invisible as it could be when underwater.
Okay.
Which includes creating an atmosphere that would provide breathable air for everybody within. So caster check.
Yeah,
Or-
the first. So this is a bubble that is essentially the size of this rowboat.
Bigger, because I feel like the rowboat would serve as a focus for the magic, but then the magic would transform it to allow us to comfortably utilize the vessel in the way that we need it.
Okay. How are you envisioning the boat being propelled?
So that is what I'm hoping Xarius helps with in terms of his use of control water. But I do envision that the boat would, at least because of the magic being somewhat related to the manipulation of reality and the manipulation of illusion, there would be like a dolphin's tail at the back of it.
Okay.
And everybody except for Xarius has a little bicycle thing that they use that they can. Except for Xarius, like I said, he's got that need is gonna bend like that.
Yeah, but then that's where Xarius gets to use his tail.
It's not prehensile.
Okay. So give me a caster level check.
Okay.
With advantage.
It's just a pure intelligence check time.
Yes.
No proficiency. Okay. Oh, perfect. Don't even need anything.
So there are still degrees of success, but
Well, in that case, I'm gonna roll the D10 then and
Right.
add that.
Nice.
Oh, still 22 is not bad.
No, I actually have
So-
advantage.
Wait, I thought I had advantage.
Yeah, you do.
Do.
Do you win from what?
Oh,
I
because
thought you didn't cast the second spell.
No,
Oh,
I don't
okay.
fucking know. As far as I know, I was successful.
all right. Well,
Okay. So
19 then.
Yeah.
So you do see around the dinghy, a bubble begins to form. Initially black, the color of the pitch. It does start to thin out above and become more and more translucent above as it forms the roof of the structure. There is, the structure is essentially looks a lot like a dark bubble around the dinghy. It is a little iridescent and reflecting light back at you in odd ways. But you do find that you can pass through the bubble easily enough to get inside the ship. And you're pretty sure this worked.
All right, everybody. If you are feeling safe, hop on.
Great job, Axios.
So pushing, I assume everyone gets in.
He's searching. Hold on.
Yeah,
Let's
I
go.
wasn't sure everyone was hopping in. Really,
I also
imagine.
imagine.
I'll see you guys there. I'm gonna go overland.
Just remember, your worthiness is not defined by your achievements.
I will get them.
Is everybody in?
Yeah.
I don't think you can say that any more disheartened, Peter.
Raleigh's like, I thought we were off the fucking boat. Now we're going under the water. Okay.
Maybe this is all just like latent dislike of the water from when she was a cat person.
Oh. All right. So what is it like once we get into the water?
So as you shove off, I mean, normally you shove off and the boat will float on the surface of the water. It's a little more effort to shove off because the boat immediately begins to go under the surface of the water. You find it's buoyant enough that you can essentially place it however high or low you want. But it's very hard to get the top of the boat above the surface of the water because it basically has to be submerged the way it is. You also find the dolphin-esque tail at the back didn't necessarily form perfectly, so it's more like a long, almost alligator-like tail, more so than a dolphin-like tail. And it does require a fair bit of effort to use to get it to propel you faster than the current can push you back. But you do get the hang of that. You're probably at some point, though, either going to have to start making constitution checks or switch off if you want to maintain speed. And I would say anybody whose constitution is like, below 15 still probably has to make a constitution check to keep this up for any prolonged period of time. But it does seem functional. One problem that you have is because the water is silty and murky, when the boat goes too deep below, you can no longer see the sky and you can't really see through the water so well. So seeing where you're going is a bit of an issue. And so it does sort of pay to stay closer to the surface of the water so you can occasionally get a peek out and make sure you're not getting too close to the sides. But it is a functional craft that can go against the current upriver. It's not nearly as fast as the magical boat you were on, but it's serviceable.
I mean, if we're far enough down and the light from above doesn't reach us very well, then a light from the light cantrip likely wouldn't be super noticeable from up there.
It probably, the light from a light cantrip isn't like sunlight bright, so it's probably not super noticeable, but it's not like it's pitch black when you're 3 feet down. It's just that the brown water is all you can see above you and around the sides. You can't get deep enough that you can never see any light whatsoever, but you're pretty sure that a light from a light cantrip can't be seen from the surface if you're so submerged that you can't see the sky.
It's an option. If we bring it down there, I can throw out a light. We also have the torch that does not go out.
Does that, like, if like, for example, if Zarius just takes out the torch, does it help with the visibility at all?
Not really. The problem is just that the water is a muddy brown. So it's not that you don't have light. You have plenty of sunlight that's making its way through the water. It's just that all you can see is the brown water ahead of you. And you could, in theory, be facing any direction. The easiest way to figure out that you're going in the right direction is just by the feel of the current and how it's moving the boat. So you can kind of,
Mhm.
when you're traveling right against the current and starting to angle away, you can feel yourself beginning to be pushed and turned.
Okay.
So it's a subtle thing of like trying to keep your balance by keeping the nose pointed towards the current.
As I'm maintaining control or maintaining concentration of the spell, do I have that sensory input from like the craft and the tail and the magic of the?
Yeah, it's not. It doesn't interfere. This concentration, I don't think, interferes with your ability to sense things around you. Like I wouldn't say it imposes disadvantage on the perception checks.
Oh, well, what I was meaning was like, am I getting sensory input from the magic and the craft itself, like to help me with the current and knowing where it is, rather than because Clave doesn't have any expertise or familiarity with navigating waters or ships or anything at all.
Right. So I would say you realize in piloting this thing that you probably could have worked something out about that, but in this, version 1, no, you don't have really any sense. You have to just rely on your sense of being twisted around.
Okay.
But you do begin to make your way upriver. You clearly pass a couple of fishing boats, so you imagine you're near the town now, and make your way past the docks and start on your way again. After several hours in the middle of the afternoon, you can see on the banks of the river on either side, high up looking down, what appear to be probably Imperial archers. There are definitely archers up there. You're imagining that they could all be Imperials given just the numbers of them, but you can't see them clearly. They, however, don't take any notice of this ship. To the extent they see anything at all, it's just some maybe shape under the water that's moving, but they don't know. The only thing that might give it away, I guess, is it's moving against the current. But if they see anything, you don't hear them. You don't see them firing arrows or taking any action in response to it. And you certainly don't hear anything from above the surface of the water giving you away. Clave, since you're piloting the ship, what's your constitution?
Oh, it's a 10.
So give me a constitution check.
I
Okay.
being like if the moment like I noticed that we're going through one of their sort of checkpoints, if you will, I would use the control water to propel us quicker forward, more
Okay,
easily at least.
So Clave, you can still give me a constitution check, but your rate of speed does vastly increase. It more than doubles. With
Can I
control water.
use my Warcaster feat with this to get advantage?
Sure.
Thank God for my remaining action point.
So after you're now moving quite a distance, but you can feel yourself, Clave. You are failing.
Wait, I'm using my last action point. So
okay. So
okay.
you are, it's a struggle to keep this tail waggling behind you. And there's always the temptation to just let the control water take over. But the control water eventually ceases to be propelling the ship.
Can
you do, go ahead.
Can I infuse more magic into it by using a 6th level spell slot? Would that help?
I would say you could try something like that the next time you do this.
Okay.
But this ship is what it is for now.
Okay.
So after half a day of piloting this, you feel like your arm's about to fall off just trying to keep this tail moving. But you did push through to get the first 4 hours done.
Okay. So is it feeling like the magic is about to fail?
No, this is your arm is about to fail because you've got to manually pump this tail to get it to move behind you.
Oh, okay. I see now.
Is it just so is it arm activated or leg activated?
It is arm
If it's
activated.
if it's arm activated, I got you.
Wait, so is it like connected to me specifically magically, where it's like
No,
I'm the only
assume,
one that is capable of doing it?
No, I assume you designed this so that other people could take turns propelling the ship
Okay.
forward.
Okay.
Unless you wanted to make it only you. Now you fuckers can't leave me behind.
I will say, because this is such a novel use of the spell, I may not have considered having it so that other people could take control of that aspect of it. So I do think that it would be probably linked to my own physical capacity and willpower. So it would make sense then that I couldn't switch off with somebody else with this version. But
Okay, then
Some wizard you are. What an idiot.
then I mean you could power through, but it will be hard. The Constitution check will be very difficult for you to continue another 4 hours on this.
do I have a sense of what could potentially happen if I were to power through rather than have us raise it back up and abort?
So I would say the DC is going to be higher than 14 for it to be a success to begin with. Worst case, the ship actually starts, without you being able to sense it, being pushed backward by the current. And so you slowly, because you can't really see the outside surroundings so well, you could be pushed back a significant distance before you ever realize you were losing ground to the current. If you got a particularly bad roll, you fail by 5 or more, that would happen, and you would get a level of exhaustion from just this exertion.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna try and power through it and see what happens.
So I like
Axios.
it's clear.
But it is very obvious to everybody
Yeah.
that is looking at me that Axios is straining. His clothes are soaked with sweat, and also strangely, as his concentration is taken up more and more by maintaining the spell and the action of the tail, his form is kind of rippling, almost like it may not even be his true form.
If I drown, I'm going to kill you.
And it
You're
turns out
inspired.
food won't be such a problem because this river is pretty well stocked with fish. So you can pretty easily just reach out and grab fish. Like Skyrim, just swim and catch the fish that way rather than using the stupid fishing pole.
T-hole just occurred. It just occurred to T-hole that like Axios is now like dripping with sweat, and like we're like airlocked in this like this space, and like he just imagines like Axios is like profusely sweating, and there's nowhere for it to go except
Right.
in our senses.
There's no airflow. Like he can't get like
Aurelia
wind
refused
relief.
to eat anything but beans last night.
But as T-hole watches Axios like just really like pushing through it, he says,
Oh, no.
"Hey, you're in charge of your energy. You choose how you feel."
What the hell does that mean?
So ignoring that, if I perhaps I probably have to use a action point to do this, could I cast freedom of movement on our boat? Normally it's on a creature.
Right. I would say with an action point, sure.
Cool. Maybe that'll help make it to where you don't have to fight the fucking current. That's the goal. That's what I was going to use to protect me. I still can technically.
So are you doing
Um,
that?
Yes, I do. Action point spent, spell slot spent.
So does
So-
that negate the need for the Constitution save, or does it
No, because you still have
mitigate some
to,
of it?
yeah, it increases your speed basically, but you still have to make the Constitution check.
Saving
bum,
is it
bum.
a saving throw or
No, it's just a
Oh,
check.
oh,
Is
is it
is
just a
it
check? Well, shit.
do I get my Warcaster with this too?
Yeah, I'll give you your Warcaster.
Also, with that, before you start straining yourself some more, it's like, do you need to switch with someone else? Because we don't know
I-
that we can't fucking switch.
Wouldn't know how. Something to plan for the next iteration.
You are enough, just as you are.
This one I have to concentrate on, but I will give you the bear's endurance.
So because
I-
this is 4 hours of struggle rather than 1 hour, I'll say
I
this
know.
gives you a +2 to your check rather than advantage.
Okay. All right. Here we go. Okay, so that's with advantage. And then I
Well-
have Aurelia's
+2.
inspiration.
Instead of
Plus two, so it's
advantage, it's
15.
+2. But yeah.
Yeah,
Well, no, I have Warcaster too.
Oh, right.
And then with the
Just in case it matters, there's your temporary hit points.
ooh, I like me some temporary hit points.
For an hour.
And then the inspiration. Okay, so then that's a total of 18.
so the because of the first effort, the first 4 hours, the second 4 hours are you power through them, but towards the end you can feel yourself failing. You don't gain any levels of exhaustion, but if it wasn't for the fact that the boat was no longer fighting the current, you're pretty sure it would have been pushed back. And at one point right towards the end, the exertion level is just so much that you just soil yourself just a bit.
Time
But
to go up, I believe.
you're completely certain that it was the freedom of movement that prevented the boat from being pushed back.
Excellent. Good thing I have prestidigitation.
Just like Harry Potter.
Yeah.
That only unsoils your clothes. It doesn't unsoil your seat.
That is true.
And it doesn't eliminate shame.
All right, so with that, I will let everybody know. Guys, I'm
Time to go
reaching
up.
my limit. We gotta go up. And I start causing the boat to surface as best I can.
So yeah, you're able to essentially, it is it's more angling the tail, but you are able to get the boat a little ways above the surface of the water, enough that people who stand up can essentially look around.
Mhm.
I do so.
So you basically have to beach the boat to get it to stop being, once the freedom of movement wears off, at least to stop the current from pushing it back. But you take it over to the side and find a spot where you can essentially brace it against a rock.
Okay.
Does this area is it wooded like before, or have we come across the farmland?
I
There-
tell Kepri to scout invisibly.
Right. So in the immediate area around you, you don't even see, there's not much of like a cliffside on either side of the river. The ground essentially gently slopes down into the river at this point. And on either side of the river, you see what does appear to be farmland. So in the distance on the side that you're on, you do see a farmhouse, but it's pretty far off. It's 1,000 feet away. So it's not
Are there-
densely populated region because everything is pretty much farms.
Are there any like is there any cover? Like, are there any cops like that kind of separate the farmlands? Cops and trees?
There are, I mean, there are low walls that separate the different farmlands. You can, if you're looking for cover, you definitely can find small groups of trees, things like that. But the ground here it is more or less pretty open. It's just there are occasional larger rocks in the water and groups of trees around. The side of the river itself is generally fairly well treed. So there are a number of trees to hide behind, but you'd have to find a fairly dense group to hide like the whole boat.
So Clave / Axius is going to rely on the others to get the boat into a situation where it's not going to be floating away, because he only has enough energy to heave himself out of the boat and then lay down.
All right, Nala, you've sat around long enough. Time to put your back into it. As T-Hole like tries to, like is trying to help, but really just kind of like giving Nala the most of the burden because Nala's way stronger.
Right. So
You're not
Nala
giving
is
her
strong enough.
inspirational speeches.
Yeah, Nala is strong enough to hoist the whole of the boat out of the water. Although it's not super easy to grab. She essentially just has to reach through the bubble to grab the side of the original rowboat that you came out on. But she's able, she has to like remove the mirror and the body from it first, but she can hoist the boat out of the water if need be.
Nala, your greatness exists here and now. Just you remember that.
I love it. Each one is getting cheesier and cheesier.
I just like that her greatness exists here and now with when Brendan's not here.
He is not here right now.
So what is the plan? Are you going to try to find a place to hide and camp again?
I mean, yeah, Axius just shit himself like while we were stuck under the water and we had to smell it. So
Yeah, that's
I'd imagine like I think Axius, you clearly need some rest, and I can take first and probably second watch at least. And we should find a thicket that we can at least camp out for the night.
Yeah. So that's all he can manage to get out. He's just breathing so hard. And then he's clearly on the verge of passing out.
So yeah, let's find like one of the thicker copses or thickets that we can kind of stow away into.
Okay, so you find a group of about 30 trees that are grouped pretty tightly on the outskirts of a farm near the river. Making your way in there, you get to a point. It's not exactly clear if somebody came close that they might not be aware you were in there, but at the very least, you're pretty sure that they'd have to get close to see you in there. And you don't see whatever archers there were stationed along the way. They may have been taking advantage of like the high ground because you don't see any obvious signs of troops around here.
Okay.
Though, there could be patrols of troops at different points. It's particularly if they're monitoring the river and they're running up and down the sides of the river, presumably they will pass relatively close to where you are. So you could decide how much effort you want to take to try to disguise your presence. Like if you lit a fire in this copse of trees, even the people in the farmhouse a distance away will probably notice the light if they look in this direction. So it's not that shielded that you could do anything you want.
I mean, T-Hole wouldn't. He'd be like fine with just throwing, like setting up the barest of camps, like throwing a bedroll out and no fire and just kind of curling up, like that level of camp.
So, and
Yeah.
eventually Kepri comes back and says that upriver, not very far away, a couple miles, there is on the river what appears to be a fort that overlooks the river. And there are a number of soldiers there in that fort. I mean, she didn't fly inside, but she could see up on the parapets there were a number of soldiers.
Sure. Yeah. I'll inform the men. Kip, inform the men. I've mated with a woman.
Did Kepri mention if the fortress is in the middle of the river or if it's on the side?
It's on the other bank of the river, but the river narrows at that point, so which means it's probably a bit faster flowing there, but it's on the far side of the river.
Faster flowing. It's still against us.
Right. She also would have seen there are two bronze bars, two like really sort of thick bronze bars that are essentially crossing one another that are extend out over the river at that point. She can't see below the surface of the water, but it doesn't look like they both go over the surface of the water. So it doesn't seem like if you're underwater, they will impede you any, but it's probably there as a barrier to prevent people from sailing up and down river. She didn't see, it looked sort of improvised. She didn't see how they would even get the bars up, like to allow people to pass if they wanted to. But presumably they do have a way. I mean, they're long enough to go across the entire width of the river.
So they've got some barrier for the surface of the water.
I wonder if it was thrown together quickly in anticipation of our potential arrival.
Kepri says, that's the curious thing about it. The bars are so long, they'd have to weigh tons. How would you quickly come up with such large bronze bars?
Kepri, have you met my ex-wife?
Only when she attacked.
When she puts her mind to something, you damn well be sure it can happen. I wouldn't put anything past her, let alone multi-ton bars.
So with that, let's take a 5-minute break.
Sounds good. I like how your background isn't symmetrical.
Isn't it cool? I like
It
it.
is. I like it too. I like the fact that it's not symmetrical though. Like it kind of gives that warped kind of
Mhm.
feel to it.
I can't even remember where I found it or what I was looking for when I found it. I was like, this is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
I'm taking this new angle with T-Hole and his inspirations.
You know, it's not too late to get into astrology. You never know. I can't really help much, at least that I'm aware of, like in this. So like I could be positive, but in like the way that T-Hole is, like I see you're working really hard. You're choosing how you feel.
Yeah, T-Hole is the one non-magic user, right? At least among the current party, not including Nala.
Although, I mean, I would say because you have some connection to the astral plane, you could probably think of something you could do with an action point.
Ooh.
Yeah, I suppose it could like, you know, swim with his arms or something. But he could do that.
Right. I mean, I also like the inspiration. I think that's hilarious. It reminds me of that one shot, the one shot where we were all just playing like randomly rolled characters that Mike ran.
Yeah.
And it's randomly rolled. Everybody, however, turned out to be some sort of like feral beast character.
Yeah.
But I had a similar thing going on where I was just occasionally spouting little bits of wisdom at people.
Was that in McCormick's Folly?
It was
Yeah, that was
Or was that?
Well, it was around the time that I was running McCormick's Folly, and it did tie into the game in that it happened in Sire just before the day of mourning.
Right, like
Because
just,
that session
like just
ended
before
with
that was the end.
Yeah.
The end of the session was Sire is destroyed and we're in it. In
Yeah.
Sire at the time.
Yeah. Yes, I remember that one. I can remember if it was that was the one you're talking about, or the one where we played like the companions, like at the at the house.
Oh yeah. Now I remember. No, I meant that one because I was playing like I forget what sort of animal folk he was, but he was like a monk. So I just found like a bunch of wise sounding Star Wars quotes and was like, fine, let's play these out.
I remember that. That was good. That was a neat
Give
take
it
on the
to
character.
Given to temptation, I will not. I finished hold on a sec. There we go. I finished The Witcher, the second season of The Witcher, a couple days ago.
Yeah.
That show is so good. If you haven't seen it,
I saw the
I have
first season.
not.
I haven't seen the second yet.
Lisa's watched
The
it several times. Never really focused on it. It's always been in the background.
It's really good. It's made well. The writing is good, and like there's just some really like badass moments. They're like hell yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's what I hear about the show. I don't know why. It's hard for me to get started with it.
So
I tend to have that problem though. Like with Game of Thrones, it took I didn't even like start Game of Thrones until I met Lisa, and even then it was like kind of kicking and screaming when it's already like well into the 4th season.
Mm.
I find I have that even for shows I like when a new season comes out now, there's always some period where I have to work up the energy to get into it again. Like I don't remember
Yeah.
really what happened at the end of season 5. And now I'm expected to jump into season 6. And then I do, and I'm like, this is great.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, I got a couple of shows like that right now. Like the last season of Stranger Things, the last season of One Punch Man, the last season of My Hero Academia. Like
See, I haven't heard good things about the last season of One Punch Man.
that's
So-
what that is one of the reasons that I have avoided it.
Right. I haven't heard anything about My Hero Academia. I don't know how many seasons there are. I saw
There are
all
5.
the ones I could see on Amazon. Then I don't know what season they're up to.
Do you have Hulu?
No.
Oh. So at least on Hulu, we also have Funimation though too. They're in season 5, but like in the manga, like I've been getting bits and pieces. I've tried not to get any spoilers, but I got bits and pieces of information, and it's like fucking, oh, I can't wait. It's just, oh.
Like I get from my friends who talk, that's the other thing. My friends read the manga and watch the anime. So I get I hear things, but I never know whether they're talking about the manga or the anime. So I have no idea whether or not what I've heard, but I heard that they finally reveal, there's a traitor, and they finally revealed who the traitor is. And they also showed the little invisible girl's face.
Yeah. I unfortunately got spoiled with the traitor. I didn't want to see that, but I ended up seeing it, and I was very upset.
Yeah, I am not even aware that there was a traitor, let alone that it was a big mystery who was the traitor.
Well, have you watched any of the anime?
Yeah, I've watched I think 4 or 5 seasons of it.
Okay, so when there's that attack when they're in the camp in the forest,
I saw
that was supposed to be really super secret. They only kept it to a very select few people, yet the villains knew where they were. And then similar issues with other smaller moments, but not as clear with those ones. But yeah, I was really upset with that reveal, because I had my ideas and I was like, nah, damn it. I was nowhere close.
I haven't even seen, I really love the show The Expanse. It's the best sci-fi show I've ever seen. And there's the finale season, the concluding season dropped a couple weeks ago. And initially I was waiting because I just want to binge the whole thing. I don't want to watch it one episode a week. But I think they finished, and I've keep meaning to go back, but then I keep finding excuses not to, including the fact that I was sick, which is fine. I don't want to watch it while I'm sick and then not really enjoy it.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's actually been done for a while now. I have to check in on that one again.
Yeah, that's a show that
Hero
I've been.
Academia too. I also have to get back into.
The Expanse, I haven't started that one yet. That is one that I'm like, I know I need to watch because I'm going to be all in. But that's also sort of my fear, because I know that I'm just going to spend a weekend and I'm not going to do anything except eat Doritos and watch The Expanse.
Well, that's,
And,
that is-
and Lisa will not be happy with that.
You're saying that like that's a bad thing.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, when she comes in yelling at you, she's like, at least I'm not out getting in fights and doing drugs.
It could be.
Is that what you want? Is that what you want, Lisa?
Well, it's interesting that you say that because you guys don't know, but Dustin knows that in rugby we had a game called Punch Hawk in the Face.
Yeah, that's not it's not terribly far from the truth.
I need to go. I do need to go and watch like The Expanse again because I watched like the first season and a half, maybe two seasons. Honestly, I might have been on the third season, but I don't remember it very well. I've been told because my buddy's been watching it though, and he's I was like, I kind of like it because it's kind of like three factions, and he's like, yeah, they kind of go away from the three factions. It's not as big a deal as the other shit. I'm like, oh well, all right then. But okay,
Everything changes at some point. Like people here who haven't seen it, I won't spoil anything, but the factions get all mixed up. Some of the factions basically die off. But then there are new things that come in, new factions that come in. Actually, I think I know the book series pretty well, and I think they kind of end the TV show like before the book series ended, because the book series went off like 50 years into there's this time skip where they're like 5 decades later. So I think they ended it before the time jump. But we'll say there's only 6 episodes in the final season. It really just wraps up the main story arc. So I'm sure at least if they give the time jump stuff, it's just going to be like a quick summary of it at the end. Okay, so you guys are resting in this copse of trees. It's relatively small. And you were going to set up watches.
T-Hole would offer to take the first 2. And it hasn't occurred to him, but he's going to use this time to really explore this nascent desire to get into astrology and try to read the natural portents in the stars.
I mean, that is a whole field of, they consider it science in this world.
Yeah,
so there are any number,
kind of like an extension of
books,
augury.
Right. There are any number of books. I mean, it requires, details about who you're trying to predict the future for.
I would like for himself, because normally he uses his natural portents to like in tea leaves, but he's going to try to read the natural portents in the stars for like the coming day.
Okay, so you would know it actually takes a lot more study than that to do a person's chart well. Like it'll take you at least a week to do a full workup on even your own. And you're confusing because most people have a birthday. What's your birthday? Like down to the minute they have a birthday. What's your birthday? You kind of, as near as like just appeared at one point after Wizard T-Hole got killed. So is it looking for your original birthday? Do all of your possible birthdays fit into the chart? So
I'd imagine that he's lived long enough that every day is his birthday.
More wisdom from T-Hole. Every day is your birthday. So your chart may be confusing to read, but if you want to, start making your astrology checks, that's fine.
Yeah, that's fair. I could use my downtime to start like trying to figure out my chart.
Right.
And then over time, like can get to the point where I can read my own chart.
And do you have like paper and ink? Because it
I
is that
do,
involved. Like
actually.
yeah, good. Because there are calculations involved.
I have ink and I have a quill. And I have a letter from a dead colleague that I could probably write at the back of.
Okay, so go ahead and make one important roll.
All right, it is a wisdom check.
Okay, that's not ideal.
You know what? I'm gonna use an action point. There we go.
Okay,
Because this
so
is
that's
important.
right. That is a success. You've begun to work on the chart, but it'll take you another 7 tries at this over the course of a week to work this out. And on your watch, you don't see anything. Who's taking the next watch? I assume there'll be 4 watches. With you, Teal taking the first 2.
Always do the very last one because I'm up. anyways.
I feel like Clave / Axius has basically done 8 hours of CrossFit. So he's dead to the world right now.
All right, I'll take it.
Yeah. Yeah, he was telling us about it as he got out of the river.
Yeah.
You can't do CrossFit unless you tell other people about how you do CrossFit.
It's part of CrossFit.
First rule of CrossFit.
Yeah.
Always talk about CrossFit.
You knew you were successful in
Second.
European blood.
Second rule of CrossFit: always talk about CrossFit.
So during Aurelia's watch, you do see at some point there is a flash of fire from the south. You're not sure how far away, but it was essentially like a line of fire that just shot up into the sky.
Like a flare?
Like a flare, but more of like, rather than a point of light that flies up, this was a straight line of fire. It was probably a flare, a signal to someone for something.
Okay. Let's see if I got.
And I assume you guys don't have like any light source that's out while you're sleeping.
Sounds like we don't want it, right? Because it might draw attention to us.
Right.
Correct.
But that also means that Aurelia can't necessarily see so well in the dark. Or Zarius or T-Hole.
I'm doing the morning one, so it'll be fine.
Yeah, I don't have anything to help me see any better, so.
So about half an hour after you see this flare, you do hear on the far side of the river the sound of armored people running. But it doesn't,
Okay.
it's, you know, they definitely get closer to you at one point, but they're, you know, probably just a short distance away from the other side of the river, which you can't see super clearly. I mean, there's moonlight, so you can sort of see there's some movement over there.
Well, I would
But you-
assume that if they were coming across a river, I would hear splashes of water, so.
If they were coming across the river right near where you were, yes.
Right, but they're on the other side, right?
Right.
Okay.
And near as you can tell, they're going north.
Okay. I would just listen and try to estimate a number, you know, like, was it 5 or 6 or 8 or 20 or, I
Give
mean,
me
if
a
it's a legion moving.
Right. Well,
then
it's
it'll be
not,
obvious.
it's definitely not a full legion, but give me a perception check.
Perception. Perceptive. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't, it's hard to make out how many. I mean, you would sort of roughly guess that maybe it's a single unit of them, like 10 guys or so.
Okay.
And then your watch otherwise ends. Nothing
Okay.
else comes up.
I would just pass that along to Zarius and let him know that what I saw and what I heard.
I'll keep an eye out.
Zarius, on your watch, you do begin to hear the sound of armored footsteps getting closer.
Closer to us.
Yes, on your side of the river.
Can I have Kepri determine like if they're coming directly towards us?
So Kepri flies off.
Invisibly.
Right, invisibly flies off. Are you going to see through Kepri's eyes or just have her report back?
I feel like maybe I'll kind of like go back and forth for as long as she's within range.
So she doesn't have to fly
Yeah.
all that far before you see coming up the river, not on a road or on a footpath, but not on a formal road, 20 Imperial soldiers. The footpath, however, it just follows the curve of the river. So they are getting closer to where you are because you're on the side of the river. You don't know if they're coming directly at you or if they're just following the path.
Okay.
But they're marching at a pretty good pace though in the in the early hours of the sunrise.
I guess then I will I'll have Kepri sort of like turn around and I'll see through her eyes and just have her scan the tree line where we are and see if we are easily visible from that
Okay.
from their direction.
So someone make me a stealth check with advantage to see how well you guys kept yourselves hidden.
I got a +5 to stealth.
Yeah, you
Okay.
do it.
I got more than that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Aurelia, you got this.
Oh, well then, yeah.
Um,
Oh damn.
So yeah, you're pretty
Yeah.
well hidden.
Okay. Then I'm gonna gently wake people, just sort of say, be ready. We may need to move.
And the sound of these armored footsteps gets louder and louder. Eventually, however, they get near the copse of trees and run past it and continue on to the north. I would roll for them, but they can't get a 29. So little under 30. I was prepared
Okay.
to give them advantage because there's 20 of them.
So we would get a surprise round if we attacked. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. You get a surprise round. But eventually you no longer hear their footsteps as they continue running. It does, however, show that there are some soldiers on this side of the river as well.
Okay.
Which we would have guessed anyways. I mean,
So otherwise the rest passes.
cool.
So what are y'all doing?
Axios, are
Clave
you-
Axios is just waking up. And you guys notice that when he sleeps, he basically looks dead. Like he doesn't move. He breathes very shallowly. Like
It's disconcerting given all that CrossFit yesterday.
Mhm.
That'd be a funny player death. He just dropped dead from exertion one day. Had a heart attack in the night.
I am so very sore. Well, we made it. Anything interesting happened while I was out?
Just some troop movement.
How close?
Close, but they were just traveling the road.
Seems you caught a lucky break then.
We were well hidden.
The roads are being watched. The Gap of Rohan is not safe.
T-Hole says
Wow.
reading from the wrong book.
Damn.
Perhaps it's for the best then that I was too tired to. Hey, get off of her. Perhaps it was best then that I was
Seeing
too tired
things
to
now.
even put up the spell for shelter.
Are you feeling up to another day of exertion?
Well, I think I may try to change some elements of the spell, some of the calculations, some of the runes on the ship to slightly adjust the focus. It might prove to be a little bit more amenable, less exhausting.
Just remember, you're the architect of your life. You build the foundation and choose its contents.
Are you reading from a book? Is T-Hole reading
No.
a book or is he okay?
Actually, T-Hole would be like he would be reading a book, but he's like glancing. It's like he's like trying to like not. He's trying to like pretend like he's not reading, but he's really glancing down.
It's in a back pocket of his. He memorized these ones before the day.
Yeah.
You know, prior like
He's
T-Hole
he's-
used to hold seminars for people.
You know,
He also
No,
used to
it's-
sell chime shares.
no, if casters can prepare spells, Teal could prepare affirmations.
He's got an affirmation book, not a spell book.
Right.
I like to think that it was just in a bag that he hadn't looked in a while. It's like way at the bottom. He just like randomly found it. Like, ooh, look at this. Now he's trying to read all these affirmations to everybody suddenly.
Eventually he'll say like, oh, if you join me at the titanium level, you can get even better affirmations.
Do we want to go on land around this checkpoint or do we want to try going under the water again?
It's a good question. Theoretically, the magic that I used could do either, although, once again, it is still experimental. And I used a great deal of personal reserves in order to cast that first spell. I don't know if I'll be able to summon such reserves again, i.e. action points.
I was gonna say, like, could you perform this feat and allow others to be able to power this vessel?
Potentially. I think that given the experience of yesterday, I can, in my sleep, I had dreams about how I might be able to work the spell differently.
How well is this empire liked around here?
That I don't know.
Aurelia doesn't know either.
I mean, Axios would probably be, I feel like T-Hole would have like a warped view of what people think of the Empire, but Axios would
Warped view of
probably
everything.
have the best level of information. And I mean, what you would know is the side of the river you're on now wasn't the Empire even a year ago. It was reconquered. That said, it was not well governed. So who knows whether or not the local people liked living under essentially very heavy taxes. In some cases, almost bandit warlords had control of these, although the ones that directly abutted the river tended to be a little more stable than that. Within the empire itself, at least outside of the imperial marchlands, the empire is pretty well thought of. People are pretty happy, pretty proud of being citizens of the empire. People on this side of the river tended to be pretty proud of being outside of the empire, as they only broke away a couple hundred years ago. But you know, it's probably a toss-up if you meet someone whether or not they'd be happy or not.
So Axios would say the Empire is garbage. It has failed the people in so many ways. If anybody claims to be happy about the Empire, they're trying to sell you something.
Well, maybe the locals would be able to help us if we need them.
Well, as much as people may hate the Empire, they also fear it. So they may not be as amenable as we might like to aiding us.
So how do you wish to proceed? I mean,
Aurelia,
you still have the boat.
Yeah.
You could attempt to make changes to the boat, I would say, without an action point, just using your illusionist feature. It would take another caster check to see how successful you are at modifying it.
Zarius, you said that Kepri had seen something the other day, but I was in a daze. What was it that Kepri had found?
The fort.
The fortress up ahead.
Yes,
And the-
specifically, you said that there was some kind of
On the water.
barrier.
Yes, a barrier at the surface of the water.
Right. Over the water, there are essentially two crossed bars of, she imagines, bronze from the color. But they're, you know, they stretch across the whole river. And they appear to be solid. So she was puzzled at how they set these in place. I mean, they're not corroded, they're shining pieces of bronze. So she imagines they've been put there recently. And that she doesn't have any understanding of how they would get them up. Like you can't just, you know, haul them across the river. They're far too heavy for that. So, but they
If I
wouldn't,
had-
they shouldn't stop a submerged ship. They're definitely above the water. She speculated as to whether or not they might have other bars of metal under the water, but she didn't see any.
So if I had more time and both to study the magic that I was attempting to rework, as well as the energy to put forth the experimentation, I could attempt to make the spell such that it would warp the area around it so that any barrier may be temporarily bent to allow us passage if there's anything below it. But I don't think that that is something achievable within the next day or so. But T-Hole, I've seen you teleport. How were you able to achieve that?
I believe in myself. I'm capable of whatever I set my mind to. As he flourishes his cloak.
Oh, for a cloak of billowing now.
I have a cloak that allows me to take myself and Dimension Door, 2 others off the top of your head.
Just
other.
one.
Just myself and one other. Some distance away.
And is the magic solely within the cape, or do you have any ability to empower it in some way?
It rests within the cape. That's why I never take it off.
Pity. That might have been a helpful way to get around a barrier. If one existed beneath the water. Well, I can attempt to recreate the effect that I did yesterday. But if there is any kind of barrier that would prevent passage, I'm not sure what could be done to address that. And obviously, if there is a barrier, then trying to surface and circumvent it within such proximity to that fort would be suicide.
Well, on the Cape of the Mountebank lets you cast Dimension Door. It doesn't necessarily say that, like, you know, it just like it's the cape. So it could be like, we could maybe treat it as like it can create, like, through, it has this mention of like having a poof of smoke when you disappear. So maybe if you could create a door that would be large enough for the rowboat to go through, like, maybe we could use it to kind of get us through. But I don't know if that's stretching what a Dimension Door does.
What we need is Dimension Garage Door.
Right.
Yeah, well, I was thinking of Dimension Garage Door, but I wasn't sure if that was a Peterism or like.
Oh, what other suggestions do we have should we encounter a barrier beneath the water? Or should we try an overland approach?
I think Aurelia's idea was a good one. She's persuasive. Seeing if we could get a local to lend us a cart and take us further up the road. Maybe you could disguise yourself as some barrels. Is that how your magic works, Axius?
Not exactly, but
Barrels would likely be
Doable.
searched.
yes. Additionally, once again, we don't know what capacity that these people of the Empire have We don't know if they have any ways of detecting magic or dispelling it. And we also don't know if we may encounter an anti-magic effect at some point. Or dead zone.
Should send Kepri ahead and he can, or she can look to see if there's anything along the road that we would encounter, or if there's a way around it.
It would take some time, but yes.
I think that's worth doing. At least then we know what our options are.
So the nearby footpath definitely leads to the village that's up ahead.
And the fort was further along than the
Yeah,
village.
the fort was further down,
But it's on the other side.
right?
Mhm.
But you can imagine the fort is actually set up on a high outcropping of rock. So Kepri would imagine it was set there for visibility's sake. So you'd have to be a pretty good distance away from the river for them to not, notice the movement. Now, they might not see that it's your group.
Right.
Mhm.
So he's sending Kepri out.
Yeah, we can do that.
So she flies off invisibly. After about half an hour, she comes back. She says there is on this side of the river an encampment of Imperial soldiers, essentially sort of adjacent to, but further back from the riverside. Basically probably a detachment from that fort. It's another 30 soldiers. Although they don't seem to be engaged in very much activity. They're clearly, probably some of them are out on patrol, and the 30 she saw sitting around don't seem to be highly active at the moment. So it's probably just a base from which they have patrols on this side of the river. And the flame she saw in the night may well have been a signal to them for something.
All right.
So the overland route, you're probably going to encounter patrols at some point. And these patrols are probably sending signals to themselves and the people in the fort.
Right.
That's about as much as she knows. The path definitely, though, does lead to the local village. So you'll encounter people if you take the path, definitely.
Are the soldiers off by themselves, or are they in the village?
The camp is outside the village. It's not
Okay,
super far outside, but it's outside the village.
Okay.
But you'll encounter the village before you get to their camp.
Okay.
And I'm not sure what would happen to the boat if you take the overland route. Because the boat's heavy and the mirror's heavy and the body's heavy.
Yeah.
That's-
You might
We'd
not
have
be
to
able to
get the-
pile all of this into a cart.
We'd need a cart that's big enough for all of it. And we had one at one point.
Well, I mean, the boat's like 12, 13 feet long. So it's pretty big. It's got to fit all five of you in
starting
a body and a mirror. So it's pretty big.
I'm thinking that maybe the water is actually our better bet with this new information. I hope you're ready for more CrossFit, Axios.
So
You can choose to make your curses your blessings.
I
Or as the wise one says, and man's most powerful weapon is courage.
Zarius, where I'm with Kepri having scouted, where is everybody? Are there any individuals walking or traveling around the area of the fort?
I mean, when she saw it, she didn't see people patrolling. There's no path around it. It is right up against the edge of this rock that's overseeing the river. So there's nobody who's like patrolling around it, but there were people all along the battlements of it. So they probably had a pretty good 360-degree view around the fort.
Like that, so that's like on the fort. And what about, I guess he wants to know around it, like on the roads around it, I guess. There's,
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, there are paths. She didn't see she didn't see direct patrols coming out of the fort. She did see what looked like patrols that she assumes came from the fort. So, but she doesn't have like know what the frequency is or anything of that nature. She knows that there are definitely people patrolling periodically along the roads. I mean, from what you've seen, every couple hours, maybe somebody will pass a given point. And they're probably not patrolling at night because it's mostly humans, more likely than not humans. That said, the Empire has been known to sometimes use specifically cordon off dwarves and halflings and use them for night patrols. But you didn't encounter any of those, and she didn't see that.
okay.
I think based on the layout, how close that fort is, and the potential barrier within the waterway, if we don't have a way to bypass any potential barrier within the water, then we need to consider other means of travel.
So there's, I mean, you can travel overland. The real question is, what do you do with the boat?
Mhm.
The stuff when like we
Right.
need a cart big enough to.
And there's
Haul
nothing that says
things.
if you're going to travel overland that you have to stay anywhere near the river. You could go directly inland in either direction before turning south again. You
Well,
don't know. You don't know
also,
how much land is being patrolled. They might be focused on the river.
If we were to choose to do overland, could I change the spell so that rather than forming a dolphin's tail or an alligator's tail behind, that it forms like legs?
Sure. I mean, that's possible. That would be something, obviously anybody seeing it from any distance would immediately be like, what the fuck is that thing?
Right.
Is that
Like
is
that
a
would
chocobo?
draw more attention than this submerged thing. But
And
yeah,
I have no other action points that I can use towards it, but perhaps spell slot, like additional spell slots, using a variation of improved invisibility or greater invisibility.
I mean, greater invisibility would be harder to do since that usually only lasts a minute. So getting that to last hours would be a significant chore.
Well, I have both.
Regular invisibility would probably be easier to stretch out.
So,
But then you were concentrating on this to propel it. Concentrating on two spells essentially will be that much harder. So
yeah.
that would be very hard to do. Not impossible, but hard.
Mhm. So I let the group know. Theoretically, it is possible to create an overland method similar to the one that we used yesterday. However, if we want to do so with discretion, where we're not easily seen, it would require a great deal of resources that I'm not sure I can muster personally.
How far is this farmhouse that we see inland? Didn't we say there was a farmhouse? or
Yeah, you
something?
can see that there's a, I mean, now you can see actual activity as people are out in the fields farming. But it's about, the farmhouse is about 1,000 feet away. The farmers are only about 500 feet.
Aurelius Zarius T-hole, I don't want to suggest that I've been kind of carrying the group,
But
but what
everything before
what-
but.
what capacities might you offer to support any plan, whether it's overland travel, water, or anything else? I mean, I'm familiar with your work through the stories, but, and I know I've traveled with you for a bit, but I'm still trying to learn your true capacities.
I have no method for disguising. I can aid others, occasionally strike down enemies. Plus, I stand out.
Oh, that is standing out is one thing that I am quite capable of dealing with. But when you say that you can strike down enemies or aid others, in what ways? I know that you can heal and you can bolster abilities to some degree. At least I think that's what you attempted yesterday, though I'm not quite sure.
Perhaps you were using the wrong ability.
I'm going to look at, I don't know how good you can see the farms and the farmers. I'm going to look to see if there's any carts that we may be able to use.
Give me a perception check. So you don't see anything that looks like a cart, but it's pretty far away.
Right, yeah.
Well, my I would be most helpful if we needed to get into a physical altercation.
I believe our
But
water
that's not what our
transportation.
goal is.
Yes. I believe our water transportation would be the most beneficial.
Yes, but what
my
would
control
happen
of-
if
My control of the water might actually allow me to raise the water level enough to go over the barrier.
But
Hmm.
if we were to do that, which may be helpful, it would also announce our presence to the Empire and they would launch an attack. They would also be then expecting us to be using the waterways in this fashion, and they may be able to communicate with others down or upriver capable of addressing that. It is a fine idea for sure, and one that we should keep into consideration, but it also gives away our position and our route.
That is assuming they are watching the barrier in such a way.
Why would they not be? You
Because
said Kepri.
Would they not
is-
assume that the barrier would keep those out that they do not wish to pass?
Right, but you said yourself that Kepri has people, or that Kepri mentioned people going about on the parapets of the fort. Surely they would be having eyes upon it, and it would raise quite an uproar if suddenly a wave were to come over the barrier carrying an unknown vessel. If I am out of line, please let me know, but
I think that's a legitimate concern. Without a serious land options, though, we have a lot to carry. And there don't appear to be any carts in the vicinity. So we'd have to go searching and hope we find some mode of transportation that's big enough to carry. Either that or we just send off this Dragonborn right here, right now, or give it a water burial.
I meant to whisper that back, but
Yeah, so Zarius will sort of like tilt his head and stand and take a few steps away from the group while they're talking to try and concentrate on this noise. Something is getting closer.
From
what
which
do you mean
direction does
something
it
is
come?
getting closer?
To the south.
From the
Is it-
south?
Yes, in the direction of the south, coming closer.
Is it
I
traveling
cannot
by
tell
land?
what it is. What?
Is it traveling? Can you tell if it's traveling by land, by air, by
Yes.
sea?
Do you not have Kepri on wing to provide us with some kind of assessment?
There you go. Um,
I
I'll
was
have
only yelling at my dog.
Bad dog.
yeah, I'll just telepathically have Kepri go fly up and out invisibly.
Okay. It takes her about 10 minutes to return. She says she thinks she saw, because she's never seen anything like it before, was something akin to like iron or possibly steel dog, but it's about 9 feet tall and it's walking along a path. But the clanking noise is just the sound of the plates of this creature banging into one another as it moves. So it is not stealthy.
So it's a wolf tank.
Something like it. It doesn't look. It's probably not big enough to hold more than like a person or two, and it would probably be uncomfortable. But it looks like a sort of metal representation of a dog. And it's moving. It's on the far side of the river, though. So you should see it shortly.
Would any of us recognize anything like that based on the description?
I mean, you've heard of like metallic clockwork toys, but nothing on that scale. 9 feet tall at the shoulder scale. But after just another couple minutes, you do see bounding up the path, or at least walking very quickly up the path. It looks like a metallic dog.
Okay, with that, let me see.
I mean, it doesn't see
So
you
we have-
because 29 stealth check. But
Okay, so we don't get the sense that it can see us, and we're
it
pretty
just appears
comfortable
to
that
be
it won't.
traveling up the path.
Okay, because Clave was about to cast invisibility on everybody.
Is there one on our side and the other side, or just the far side?
She only saw one on the far side.
Okay.
But and she also couldn't tell. I mean, it was in proximity to the fort. She doesn't know if it came out of the fort or came from further south.
I'm getting very concerned about these patrols that are getting very close, too close for comfort. I think we need to make a decision soon. We need to have a good plan, whatever it is we decide.
I'd rather chance it by sea than by land. By water than by land. And hope that we can dive underneath.
All right, so then, Zarius, I know that you are capable of controlling the water to aid us. Aurelia, T-Hole, there must be something that you can do to help if things get complicated.
I am enough just as I am.
But what
He didn't even
are
read
you?
that out of the book.
All right.
I might be able to dislodge the barrier, although that would be risky.
Risky is better than nothing. Aurelia,
Yes.
I know that you have a way of inspiring others, and I've seen you use magic, but I don't quite know what magic you're capable of. Is there anything that you can do to aid to make sure that we're successful in whatever choice we make to try and get by the forces of the Empire?
Life is hard. It's even harder if you're stupid. I inspire you.
Strangely, despite the content of the words, Clave is comforted. All right.
I mean,
He accepts that,
Right.
not knowing why he accepts it.
You know, Bard's got a lot of spells. I don't know exactly what Aurelia has prepared.
Well, that's the great thing about bards. They don't prepare spells. They just
Yeah.
have them.
When we
They don't have anything like control water, I guess.
No, I don't. Yeah, it's.
Well, they could with magic secrets.
That's true.
Yeah, I don't,
That requires some planning. And that would be really, usually not a great use of magical secrets
right,
as
right.
you head into the deserts of the deep south.
Right. Nautical campaign only, that spell for
But I mean, like, she has Mirage Arcane. At least that is a possibility.
we should try to find a town sometime soon, though. To stock up on supplies. So maybe once we're past this barrier and kind of downriver a little bit more, we can find another wealthy town with slaves and see what sorts of things that they have. We can restock up.
Personally, I think it's a bit generous to consider such a long-term future, but it does provide for a hopeful outcome, I suppose. All right, well, if there's no other plans or no other opinions on the matter, I will begin the magic to resume our sea craft.
Hold on just a second. Just making that clear. So are you modifying the craft?
So now the intention is, well, once again, I want to try and make the tail a little bit more dolphin-like to increase the propulsion. Also, maybe add some fins that can create a little bit more guidance in terms of direction, as well as capacity for. So I don't envision this to be something that has any mechanical parts to it, right? So with the control of the tail, I don't see it like having like gears that you would pedal or anything like that. But there would be a spot in the vessel that somebody could make like a motion, like a continuous activity to mimic the rhythm of the tail, as well as to modify the fins based on their orientation.
So like, is the continuous motion like the ropes, like the battle ropes?
It could be, or I was envisioning like one of those the Nordic tracks where it's like or Tybo, maybe you're just punching.
It's like a Peloton.
Yeah. It's just rhythmic movement that it responds to. So even Zarius could do it.
What's that supposed to mean?
And
So
then
it's like rhythmic movement while you're controlling the fins on the side. So it's like you got these little like puppet handles as you're punching. You're going like the puppet handles, like patting yourself on the head and rubbing your stomach at the same time. You get it.
I just imagine like a Wii boxing where you're holding the Wiimote, you're like punching really hard, and it's like, yep, that's all you need.
And otherwise, there's no visible effects. So it just looks like you're just having a spasm.
I'm also envisioning, although I imagine that this would have to be a future iteration of the spell, because this is still very early, but at least at some point, I imagine that it kind of creates almost like a warp bubble that expands in front and contracts behind, so that, for example, if there were bars like that were thinner, like closer together than the vessel would normally be able to get through, that it would kind of warp the space around it so that the bars were open and then close behind it. I don't expect that to be something that would work with this version, but that is something that I am considering now that there's a potential that there may be a gate or something as a barrier.
I mean, I would say mostly because of your illusionist ability, the malleable illusions, you could probably try to warp something like that on the fly. It would just require a caster check to get it to bend around the ship.
So yeah, that is what I am envisioning in terms of changes. Also little feet on the bottom to help with getting it in and out of the water. Maybe just like little duck feet.
Okay. So make me another caster check.
All right. Warcaster still applies.
Yeah, sure.
Or wait, that's concentration. So that would
Yeah,
be
that's right.
caster check. All right. Ta-da. Ooh. And because degree of success matters, I have an inspiration from Aurelia. Nice.
So yeah, you are able to make pretty much exactly what you want. You're not sure how effective the duck feet are going to be in moving the bulk of the boat, but a little bit of a help. Probably not moving at any great speed overland if that becomes necessary.
And I imagine it like it's not like 2 duck feet, it's like a centipede of duck feet along the bottom of the boat.
But the back of the boat has now been modified so that someone who's sitting directly at the stern, essentially there's like a translucent sheet of magic in front of them. And by manipulating, pressing against this sheet of magic, which itself is somewhat tiring, you can get the dolphin paddle at the back to flip. And you can manipulate the fins that have grown out of either side.
So
T-Hole
once
can do
yeah,
that
once I'm
further.
confident in the design of the boat, I would ask T-Hole, can you please do this? I cannot, my muscles are still recovering from the other
It's not very CrossFit.
day.
Of course. I'm proud of my journey and how far I've come. And then he just like starts going at it. And T-Hole's got a pretty solid constitution, so like he should be pretty strong at it.
Okay, so you can definitely. What's your constitution score?
15.
Okay, so you can definitely at the beginning. It is no problem for you to keep this up. It does sort of feels odd at first because it feels like you're flailing, but you can feel the pressure from this membrane of magic, this sort of glowing purple translucent form in front of you. And you quickly realize like every time you sort of press in, the tail goes up and then goes back down again. But you just have to sort of keep working it constantly as you're going. And manipulating the fins and the duck feet are able to walk you into the water. And you all set off on your way again. Traveling further south, you eventually come to a fairly sharp turn in the river. And you realize as you get high enough that there's a cliff overlooking this section. And atop that cliff, you can see the fortress. From your angle, you can't necessarily see anyone atop the fortress, but you're sure this is what Kepri saw. And rounding the corner, you can see that there are set above you, above the surface of the water, these 2 bars of metal that at their highest point come up about, where they cross, come up about 5 feet over the surface of the water. You being completely submerged really shouldn't affect you at all. In the murkiness of the water itself, you can't necessarily see if there are any metal bars below the surface of the water. Surely metal would corrode if you put it underwater, but so how fast are you trying to move as you make it under this barrier and possibly into whatever you can't see that's ahead of you?
Full bore.
Okay. You're not in the
yeah.
control seat, so only T-Hole gets to decide how fast he wants to go.
Yeah.
So T-Hole is just going full throttle in the back, thrashing around as the dolphin tail flips behind you. And you begin to move. You can see the 2 bars under or above you right now. And you also see the bars begin to shake, like visibly they begin to blur as you move under them. And you begin to see, it almost looks like they're shattering, like cracks are forming in the surface of these 2 bars. Every couple feet or so, there'll be another crack. And they seem to be sagging down towards you as you're passing under them. Until eventually you do get completely by them, but they fall into the water And from behind you, you then see a series of bubbles and splashes as two enormous mechanical sea snakes rise up, both looking in the direction of your bubble boat. And that's where we'll stop it.
Nice.
Awesome.
Not a problem.
So a lot of planning this session.
Feel
But
like it was planning well paid off. Like, you know, how do you get downriver and with 10,000 soldiers in front of you?
Yeah, in between you and your destination, who are seeking you specifically.
Yeah, I had no idea what you were going to do with this session, whether you were going to go up the river or not.
I thought it was pretty fun trying to figure it all out.
Right. You are almost at the level of gods, so it's not worth trying to predict what you'll come up with. I like the bubble boat, the submersible boat. And it definitely got you past a lot of things that I had planned, but I think they weren't expecting you to be underwater. So I was like, well, that's a good idea.
I almost feel like maybe a couple more iterations and Clave might get his own named spell.
Yeah, this is definitely how I imagine most spells are made. It's starts with little variations of some existing spell. But yes, this absolutely could be something that you develop into a full-fledged spell. I mean, some people might think you're like crazy making 1,000 duck-footed boat. That could be the name of the spell. 1,000 duck-footed boat.
Do you create one giant duck-footed boat or 1,000 smaller duck-footed boats? Yeah, it was fun.